Welcome to this podcast. Today's guest is Lukas Hughes. So, Lukas, we have a little bit of an introduction. So, if we can just have a starting point of maybe tell us a bit about how you got into carp fishing, and then we sort of maybe move on to more of some like recent trips and maybe some memorable catches. So, welcome to the podcast, mate, and let's see where it all started for you.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. I got into fishing really after I used to play football to a decent standard, and then from there really I had a few knee injuries, ACLs, a few operations, and I sort of gave up with football really because work was sort of more important. So I looked for another sport to enjoy, and then a friend of mine called Connor sort of got me into a bit of a river fishing, a bit of all species, roach, chub, that sort of stuff, and it sort of grew from there really. Found out about carp, and then it sort of developed.
How long ago was that, mate? When did that sort of start? What were we on about timeline wise?
God, it must have been about 7-8 years ago. It's not a massive time ago.
Yeah. How old are you, Lukas?
I'm 28.
Yeah.
28.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. And so,
So it's not that.
Go on.
No, so I'm just saying it's not that long ago, really, in the grand scheme of things.
Can you remember like the first sort of carp fishing session when you were actually going for them, targeting them?
I was just going for days really, like little farm day tickets, and then it sort of grew from then. Sort of evolved. Got my first club ticket, sort of jumped into the deep end, and then sort of picked up the way and never looked back really.
Yeah, and then all the expense comes with all the kit for night fishing and everything else.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so sort of where does that take us to now? I mean, where are you fishing? What are you targeting? Sort of water size and what's in there?
So at the moment, I'm on a lake, sort of in the Colne Valley. I don't know if we have to name it really, just for respect out the guys.
Of course.
Otherwise, it could get a bit busy. So it's a ticket. It's got 3 lakes I'm sort of fishing at the moment. It's got a small, medium one and a large one. I've been fishing the small one recently. It's probably got a stock of around 70, 80 carp, deep, 25 foots in places. It's public lake. It's a nightmare at the moment with public swimming. But it's probably got 80 carp. They're not massive, but they're like really old fish. And there's a few stockies coming through. I've probably had about, I've had 15 bites so far, biggest 32. And that was one of the decent ones, to be fair, out the lake.
Oh, nice. Fair play. So obviously what I'd like to talk about, because we get this question quite a bit, and when you target a newer water, how do you go about it? I mean, what sort of thing do you do to try and give you a bit of an edge and to sort of build a picture?
So before I even normally fish it, I'd walk it a lot, bait certain areas, see where they're sort of migrating through the day and the evening. Nights, walking at nights is quite good, especially during the winter, staying up at night or walking at night, just so you can see where they're showing. Especially because I do quite a lot of overnighters, you can sort of target them a bit better, saying getting there after work. They're going to show up in a certain night zone, and then it sort of evolves from that, really. But probably bait in certain areas, keep a watch for it for a few weeks, see where the feet are fizzing up, check the edge spots, and go from there, really.
Lovely. And are you sort of quite a keen pre-baiter then, obviously, where you get a few spots going? Do you sort of bait a few likely ones, or do you go off sightings and then bait?
So generally I get one night a week on averages, maybe more, depends what I'm doing really, work and personal life. So I'll probably bait 2 or 3 times in the week if the spot's getting cleaned off.
Right.
I'd say. At the moment, there's a big issue of ducks on the lake I'm fishing. The locals keep releasing them, sort of like a rescue thing. And they're so friendly, they're just in your swim, diving on the spots. It's like relentless. So you're sort of baiting with black tigers, dark baits, but they're still getting hammering them. So you sort of got to take a bit more just to feed the birds off at the moment.
Is it quite shallow there?
The edges are quite shallow, so you can probably wade most of the edges, but it's sort of your first shelf's 3-4 foot, then it'll drop straight away to like 7 foot.
Right.
Then the weed will stop, and then from that probably like 3-4 wraps out. It's like gravel into the silt at the bottom of the shelf, like 12 foot.
Okay.
And then 20 foot in spots. That's on the little lake. On the big lake, it gets down to like 35s down the bottom end.
Yeah.
It's really deep.
Yeah. Crikey. And have you fished that big a deeper one or not yet?
So I've done 1 or 2 nights in spring, but it's very early. So that's sort of the last lake to switch on, where it's so deep. But it's all relative because it fishes well into like early, like January. It still fishes well.
Right.
Just where it's so deep, it holds the warmth longer. But I am looking, like I said, I've done a bit on Little. I'm sort of going away for a week on holiday, and I'm planning to jump. Not the one we're talking about, the middle one, the deep one. There's a bigger one. It's 100 acres. I'm looking at jumping on there for the late summer, autumn, just to see if there's fish I want out the whole complex that swims around in there. So that's the
fair play.
There's no point wanting it if you're not fishing it.
Yeah. And have you fished waters of that size before, or is that sort of a new thing for you?
I've never fished a lake of 100 acres. I think the closest I fished was probably 35, 40 acres, which was Little Frencham. I don't know if you know that ticket.
No.
Which is Little Frencham's about 30 to 40 acres, probably about 30 carp.
Right. And what's the stock on this big one that you're going to target?
The big one's it's 100 acres. It's probably got 200 carp.
Right.
Right time of year, it's probably got 5, 6, 7 40s.
Okay.
And there's a common in there that's been sighted quite a lot. That's big, but it's never really been caught.
Okay.
A few guys have seen photos of it, and it's quite big. Yeah, possibly 15, but you won't know till it's on the bank.
Yeah. And is that sort of quite long range stuff on there, or is it all sort of margin or a bit of everything?
So it's a weird lake. So it's a boating lake as well. So you've got a couple boating areas of like bays of like each. There's a bay of like 6 acres. It's got a dog leg, which is really snaggy, which a guy I know really well catches well off there.
Right.
Then you've got Boaters Bay, which is 3 acres, and then you've got another bit with a few car wrecks and stuff like that. That's probably 2 acres. Okay. And you could probably go around fishing those and catching them, but certain time of year you probably know you need to be in an open water deeper zone.
Yeah. And are you allowed to use boats in your fishing, or is it not allowed on there?
So you are allowed to use boats, but there's a waiting list. I think I'm currently number 14 on the list. Right. So obviously that opens another pathway to catching them.
Okay. And I suppose that's if you're not gone.
A lot of the guys that do well on the boats, they fish sort of in the middle. There's where the shallows meets the deep, and they just fish off the shelf.
Right.
It's like they catch a lot out there, to be fair.
Yeah. And so how are you going to approach that? And obviously, if it's a big old water, that'd be interesting to hear. So if you do anything different, like approaching that, is it for the first time on such a large sort of expanse of water? I mean, have you got like Google Earth sort of printouts and stuff? You checking on your phone, you like measuring distances and things like that? Yeah,
definitely doing measuring the distances on Google Maps is quite helpful. Another thing is one of the guys showed me just for map. It's a thing called a deeper. I haven't got a deeper, but if you get the free trial, all the maps that are mapped, they're free on there. So you can click and zoom in and just take screenshots and delete the app. Yeah. So I've done that on all 3 of the lakes. So you get a good grasp of what the bottom's like.
Oh, nice. That
depth-wise, which
give you like a good starting point, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely does help. That's a good little tip for anyone.
Yeah.
You don't even have to, I've never had one, but yeah, it's a good little.
Yeah. And obviously, if you're, from what you said, obviously, in speaking to you before we hit record, you're quite a busy guy with work and everything. I'd imagine you have to be quite on it with your prep, and if you're sort of fishing on limited time, as most of us are these days. So what sort of edges have you got, or have you sort of tricks and tips have you learned and sort of give you a bit of a one up on the next guy?
So on the big lake, which I'm probably looking to go on in a week or so, I'll bait 2 spots. So it'll be each end of the lake, and I prefer to fish on the westerly winds, just so it's a bit warmer than the easterly. So there'll be a spot on the southwesterly. There's a swim I've noticed already doesn't get fished, and then one on the northwesterly, which is sort of on the motorway bank, which doesn't really get fished either. There's certain swims that get fished, but there's obviously where you go over it is not. So I think with these for the size of that lake, and they're not that riggy compared to the other ones, I think just straight boilies, but then obviously washing out boilies is quite a good edge, especially when they're pressured fish and they see bait every day. They like to go over spots continuously every day, and they won't feeding it till it's 3-4 days old.
Yeah. Do you get any issues with crayfish on there or not?
No crays, luckily.
That's good. Yeah.
Just this 18-pound bream, which is a bit different.
Crikey.
Yeah, they're massive.
Yeah, one of them at 3 a.m. When you spent an eternity getting a rod out, or something, especially if you've been boating them out. God.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different. But casting wise, I think anything over. I think you catch fish casting 100%. A lot of the boys have on that big lake, but obviously the boating is you can take it 200 yards plus. For casting, it's probably accurate 150s.
All right. Okay. Fair play. And are you sort of geared up for all that stuff?
Yeah, I've got 3.5 test curves, braid,
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. So it's pretty robust gear.
Yeah. And are
for that
you
sort of fishing.
quite used to fishing at that range as well already? Or
I wouldn't say I'm used to it, but
Hmm.
it'll come, won't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And obviously
It's got to
bait
be
and
the only
everything
thing
else.
the only thing that will sort of throw you off the wind if you get a big wind trying to chuck a lead out there, but you
Yeah.
get used to it, don't you?
Yeah. And sort of allow for it, I suppose, beforehand. 'Cause, it's like, especially if you're doing a couple of nights, you can obviously have that wind on your back to start with. And then before you know it's like a side wind and it's messing up your
Yeah,
final
exactly.
distance, isn't it?
But I think there's a swim in one of the bays that's the weeds really up in there, it's shallow, and you can there's a tree you can get pretty high up, and you just see them cruise over this glowing spot. Like no,
Yeah.
I've spoke to a few of the boys, and then none of them's baited it, and it's thinking they're on something. If it's that clear, no one's baiting it, they must be on something down there.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a
Especially with
good
the
shout.
weeds, probably naturals.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose you don't really know the answer to this, but sort of how long are you planning on staying on there for? Is it just a case until you have one of these bigger ones, or are you sort of planning like a fair sized campaign?
So they've stocked it as well recently. They do a decent stocking program of Dintons. I reckon a couple of years. Probably got a year before I get my boat, and then
Yeah.
obviously you got the other lakes on the complex that still got some cool fish on.
Right. Nice.
Yeah, definitely a couple of years.
Yeah, that'd be good to keep in touch and see how you get on with that as well. Be interesting.
There is another lake that I've previously fished that they've done a bit of work on, which there's quite a few stockies in there. Apps Court, I don't know if you know, it's over Walton Way.
Right.
So I've done a bit of time over there a couple of years ago, and so
Yeah.
I met a few of my close friends now actually on that lake.
Okay.
It's like a 2 acre lake, probably 16 foot at deepest, but they had a few issues of catfish, snags, like they had the catfish turned into boilie munchers as usual, and the biodiversity was a bit strange. So what he's done, he's drained it, like stored the 40 carp he wants to keep in there. So he's put them to the side, put the other, sold the catfish and put the other lake fish in a smaller lake. He's got like a match lake. So there's only 40 carp in there, and with pike as well. So they're like really flourishing. Like he's on a feed program with them. So a couple of years, there's a fish in there, one called Graylin, which is growing well. It'll be £40 a couple of years, so I'll probably go back.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Nice.
We'll see.
Have you got any sort of memorable catch stories from there or anywhere nearby that you can share with us?
I done a bit of time last year on Split Lake. I done quite well actually on Split. My first season on there. So what was happening is I was fishing Frencham at the time. I've done about 8 nights in autumn into winter. I had 4 bites, which is quite good on there. Had a big linear and a old original. It's Mickey Gray's book called Cluster. Don't know if you've seen it.
Nice,
one side's like leather, the other side's got like 8 scales in the middle of it. It's one cluster.
Right.
And then COVID hit, and then after that, I got offered my split ticket, which I couldn't turn down really. So I took my split ticket, and then I've done a year on there last year, which it was quite good to be fair.
Nice. Can you tell us about a few of the sessions? Because it sounds like a decent water. Like some of the fish that you caught, like how you went about catching. I mean, did you target them specifically?
So there was 3 fish I wanted in there, which was Slopey Head, which is arguably the biggest common. It's the biggest common now. Rudder, which is probably the rarest mirror in there, and then there's one called Prehistoric, which is old as the hills. So I caught 2 out of 3 of them. I couldn't get anywhere near Prehistoric really. Just the swim was always stitched up. There's a few guys fishing it, so you just leave them to it. If it comes along, it comes along. But that's actually dead now. That fish, Prehistoric, died this year, unfortunately.
No. What, just old age or like?
Old age. It was old. It was an old fish. Old fish. Yeah. Cool one though. I'll send you a photo of it afterwards. You can see it.
Yeah, nice. That'd be good. Or I was going to say, I'll have one that we can put up for the Instagram post as well. One that you sort of mentioned.
Slopey Head was quite a cool one.
Yeah. How did you go about catching that? Tell us about that.
So I started on there, and it was quite weedy. So I started off with sort of like, it was hard to get on the fish because it was quite busy. Like COVID had finished, everyone was fishing. So I was sort of chucking out singles about, and just to no joy. And I sort of clicked in my head thinking, I've done a bit of time on another Yates War, and it sort of clicks in, I've got to be on the Tigers really.
Yeah.
Definitely. And a good friend of mine, I don't even know, Dan Kilgore.
Yeah.
Tigers are pretty
he's going to come on
lethal, to be fair.
Yeah.
I did speak to him earlier, actually, and he did mention it. But his Tigers are lethal. So there's a swim so the split, obviously split in 2 halves. There's some channels through, and there's a swim called the Wankers that you fish out to the furthest bush. I think it's about 16 wraps, and 2 rods over there. And I've sort of got down. I've done a couple of nights, had a small common, and then overnighters. One for one small con wasn't really happy, and they were due. So it was a full moon, the last night of the full moon going into that morning. I've sort of baited out of that spot, not tight to the spot. I've come off the spot because it sort of slopes.
Yeah.
So obviously, if you bait in that far, it's obviously going to roll off quite a bit, depending on what you're using. So I've probably come a wrap off the bush just to get that depth, and then sort of baited it the first night. Tigers, boilies, pellet, and then nothing the first night, but getting quite a lot of liner, so I stuck with it. And then second morning, there's nothing really. And then the guy on the other side of the lake, the end of Big Pin, had the red mar that morning at, what did it go in? 47.4.
Okay.
Yeah, 47.4. And I just saw him celebrating. I thought, you know what it's like? He's thinking, fair play to him, but you think, oh God, no fish, Jesus. And then I've sort of picked my brew kit out, and then the left-hand rod has gone absolute meltdown, like steam train on a tight clutch with braid. You just see the rod fizzing away.
Yeah.
And then when I've hit into the fish, I don't know how I got so much line, but there's a big tall redwood in the lake, and it was past that on the other side of the lake. I thought, shit, what am I going to do? So I've just sort of pumped it and walked backwards, sort of walking like a dog. And I don't know how it got back over into what the smaller side that it was in. And it was about 15, 20 minutes of just dogged fighting. Got in close, see the net, and you just sort of, I didn't know what it was then. And it was sort of up and down the margins, just giving it an absolute running me ragged, really. And then got it into the net, saw it, I thought, that's a decent common. And then I thought, what should I do? Shall I wait? So I saw it and I recognised there was the head on it, obviously slopey head, it's quite drop at the front.
Right.
I recognised it. I thought, right, we'll weigh this up quick, double sure. And I've quickly weighed it up just myself. You knew you grab the scales, just quickly put it up to get a gauge, and went over 45. I thought, let me quickly put that in the sling in the net and just wait, because I knew a few guys opposite the lake, the other side.
Yeah.
Just gave them a shout. They came round. We weighed it up. It was 46.12, and it was top weight for that fish. And then done the photos. Absolute mate, unreal buzz. That was my PB, still is, but unreal. Just that buzz sort of you get, and we sort of celebrated that night with a few red stripes.
Fair play. How long did it take you to have that one then, from like your first session on there?
No, so I was on one common for 5 nights.
Right.
And then that was overnight. So I thought, right, I'm going to get a 2-nighter in just to see if I can bait and get on the fish, because it seemed to be doing more bites that way. Yeah. And it sort of paid off that way, really.
Oh, fair play. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? When you're used to doing overnighters, I think it's a real edge doing overnighters, because it makes you so switched on, and you sort of use that little bit of time you've got, to the maximum, don't you? So when you get that 2-nighter, you can sort of get something going, can't you? You settle into it a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
You sort of know where they'll be, and you almost sort of like you're one step ahead of them, aren't you? So your traps are set before they turn up.
Yeah, that Slopey done a bite in the spring at 44, and it done one at 46.12. And I think it done another 2 bites that year. But the mirror rudder, I don't think that rudder hadn't done a bite for a year and a half.
Right. Okay.
And then I've done a few other nights, caught 1 or 2 more. There's a swim on the other side of the lake where the northwesterly blows into, called the Dairy. A lot of guys fish it long at 21. There's sort of like a triangle out there that free swims fish, like the Bermuda, and they always show there. It must be like a rubbing spot or something, or a bit of a plateau they come up off. But I sort of had a lead one day when it was quiet. I noticed no one was fishing it, and I found a really nice spot off just there's some eelgrass to the right and the Canadian. It's about 11 wraps, just this hump that comes up to 4.5 foot, surrounded by 6. So I thought, that feels good. So I've looked it up, come down for an overnighter about a week later. I thought, right, I've got a bit of bait in me. I'm going to just, even if I don't get a bite, I'm going to give it a bit of bait to see what happens. Yeah. So I think I put about 35 spoms, large spoms, so it's probably about 3 kilo of just straight seed, and I fished 2 tigers over the top. And I thought, right, just see what happens. And then I was getting a few liners through the night, and then the next morning, my friend had one off Little Pin Alex. He had a cool common about 29 pounds. And then I was on the phone to him about 9 o'clock, and it was really sheeting up around it, like in the weed where they're disturbing it. And then the rod has gone like into meltdown. Team trained out over the back, and it's weeded up. By that time, Alex had come round into the swim, sort of playing it back, dogged fight. And you're sort of close when the fish is tiring, you sort of see the leader knot. I don't know if I put partly on my leader knot just to pin it down a bit. But then I just couldn't see it the whole way in. And then about 3 foot out the bank, he just bobbed up, netted it, and he was like, "I think it's rudder." I was like, "No, it can't be rudder. You must be joking." Not like 13, 12 nights, 12, 13 nights, a couple of fish and 2 of my targets done. Sort of like the luck that Terry Hearn has that you hear in his articles and stuff like that. But yeah, it was rudder. It went £41, and I think it done one other bite that year, and it hasn't done a bite since.
Crikey. And how big was that water, did you say?
So it's 12 acres, and it's split in 2 halves. So it's 7 acres on the big side, 5 acres on the other side.
Right. Was it like a little sort of gully, like trench that joins it or something?
Yeah, there's like peninsulas on each side, and then there's like little dot islands they can swim through.
Yeah,
it's a cool lake. It wasn't that popular back in the day when a lot of the guys were fishing, because it was full of catfish.
Yeah,
but obviously they got moved out by the new owner Martin, and then sort of the carp have sort of taken over.
Oh wow, sounds brilliant. Yeah, a picture of a couple of those would be good as well to have.
Yeah, I've pinged them. I've got my phone. And then from there, really, I did get offered my car park ticket for the following year, but sort of I was trying to finish my house up. I really couldn't justify the money, if you know what I mean. I'd rather put it into my house.
Yeah,
and it was car park was quite busy the year before, so I thought I'm going to take the other ticket, which is 10 minutes from my house, 3 lakes to fish, probably 1/10 of the money. And I thought, yeah, we do that for a few years, and if I want to go back, I'll just mention it, and he hopefully let me back on car park.
Yeah, nice. It sounds like there's a lot of lessons and learning to be had on these 3 lakes that you've joined.
Yeah, they are some of the riggiest fish that I fish for. Like, you watch them in the edge, you throw like a couple tiger nuts in, and they just like come over the spot to see what's happening, like all like boisterous, and then they just bugger off.
Yeah,
weird ass fish.
Yeah.
So the ones I have been catching it's a little bit of an edge. I know a few of the boys know fishing, I know what I'm doing anyway, but clouding the spots up with liquids and powders, it's definitely making a sort of difference, I think, on the spots.
Yeah. Well, just
so
because they're literally because their vision's a bit harder to see the rigs.
Yeah, they're so finicky, especially with the water's tap clear, like what some people call it the clear pit. But where it's so clear and they can see everything, they come into the spot and shoot off. But where it's cloudy, I don't know if it gives them confidence, or when you disturb silt sometimes.
Yeah.
And then when you stand on your leader and put it back, sort of gives them a bit of confidence, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Nice. I'm just having a look at the picture of that slopey head coming on your Insta, actually. Lovely looking fish, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a cool one. It's the biggest in there now, I believe.
Right.
Sort of red mice taking the other common's taking a step back, and then slopey's sort of grow. It's got a massive frame, to be fair.
Yeah, sort of all in proportion. I like fish like that. It just all looks sort of right, don't they? It's long, but it's sort of quite deep and stocky, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, but definitely.
Nice.
The fish I want out of the big lag, I'll send you it shortly, but it's like small with a tail, 40 pounds, like a unreal mirror.
Yeah.
Possibly the best in the country, I think, for a mirror.
Nice. You got some nice shots on there, mate, on your Insta. You into your photography as well? Yeah,
I have got into it recently. I do a few photos for a few of the guys, close friends, if it's like a decent one, not like a getting out of bed in the morning for a 15-pounder. But if it's like a decent one, I'll go and do shots for them. But yeah, I've got the camera and everything.
Yeah, what kit do you use, mate?
I've got a Nikon. I like the Nikon D750.
Yeah, no, good kit, aren't they? Real
decent
sharp
lens.
Yeah,
really sharp. You can get really fixed 35.
Yeah,
low aperture. Comes off well, to be fair.
Lovely.
Not best on self takes, I will admit.
Yeah, has it not got a flippy screen or anything like that?
It hasn't got a flippy screen, but it's got a self timer mode built into it. But you just got to get it all set up correctly. It's just a bit finicky, especially when they're flapping around on the mat.
Yeah. I think once you've done a few self takes, it's all right, isn't it? But it's getting enough to be on it sort of quickly.
I've got a friend Jordan that only takes self takes, even as people about.
Yeah, I know.
He's just so used to it. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, because if it's your camera as well, obviously, then it's you sort of know all the settings, you know how you want it. Because you spend all that money on camera kit and then sort of hand it to someone that potentially doesn't know how to do it or to adjust the settings. It's a bit,
And you look at the photos afterwards and they're all blurry.
Out of focus, or they've cut
had a few of those.
Yeah.
Heads off it or something.
That's it. Yeah, haven't we all? So you just sort of self-taught on the photography front? Or?
Yeah, I've got a friend of mine, Callum, who sort of done a few of my photos, and he's pretty good. Just for like the settings and stuff like that, he's pretty switched on.
Yeah.
Sort of learned a bit from him, and then off your own back, really.
Yeah, no, it's good. That's what I mean. I just sort of YouTube videos. I mean, there's loads of stuff out there, isn't there, to have a look?
Yeah, just getting the sort of cheat sheets for them, if you know what to shoot at.
Yeah, definitely. So when do you say you're going to start on this big pit?
So I'm going to start. I'm away next week with family in Sicily, and after that, I'm going to start there.
Yeah,
and then give it a good whack, and then got a social with the normal lot in October.
Yeah.
So I'll give it full beans till then, and then
got
the social over Raysbury. Do you know the Hut Island over there? You can hire it out now.
Okay.
On the South Lake. So we've sort of hired that. We normally go in the Reading way and do a social, but we sort of done really well the last time we were there, thinking, I ain't going back there again.
Raysbury's got some cracking fishing still, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. That arcade ticket is. I'm on the wait list for that. That will come up anytime soon.
How far are you from that complex?
So Raysbury is probably 15-minute drive.
Okay, lovely.
It's not far at all. Okay.
Spoiled for choice then in your area, mate.
Yeah, more location-wise, I probably easiest thing to describe it is probably 10 minutes from Fort Park, Chertsey area.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Have you got much of a commute to work or not?
10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not too bad, especially if you want to go for a lunchtime walk and stuff like that.
Yeah, ideal.
Keep an eye on the place.
And have you got your sort of sights on anything other than this large lake in the future?
I'd like to go back to Frensham, Little Frensham, to do a bit over there, but it's quite a trek. It's the other side of Farnham compared to where I am. And it's club ticket, which, some of the rules are like. But I was on the waiting list for Reading last year, but I didn't get it. And then hopefully, so if it comes up next year, I'll take it. I'd like to have a crack at Engie, really. Sailing pit over there.
Nice.
Just for Baby Black. But I know that's chocker. It's like a circus busy over there.
Yeah, that's the only trouble, isn't it? When water's like that.
That's what happens. That's what these big fish fishing for. But there's commons in this other lake, the middle lake I'm fishing at, are like dinosaurs and unreal commons.
Right. Nice.
Yeah. So I'm sport for choice, really. I've got a few waters there for a few years. I've worn them. Yeah, but then obviously there's other tickets come up. We'll see.
Yeah. I've just had a message come that says it's going to end in 10 minutes. What I'll do after, obviously we had a bit of a mission getting this set up and running. So that's ticking down on that timer. I click off that. But yeah, we'll wrap it up here, mate. What I'll do, I reckon, once you're back from holiday, you're getting into that big pit. We'll do like a catch up because that'd be really good to see how you're getting on and see what you're finding. Yeah,
definitely. Maybe a month or so or something like that. See how I'm settling in.
Yeah,
should be fine. Hopefully, I have a few captures under my belt by then. Yeah,
that'd be good. Okay, mate. All right. We'll wrap up there.
Cool.
And, obviously,
cheers,
Dom,
for
coming on. No worries, mate.
No worries. That's cool.
Have a really good holiday.
Cheers, and I'll give you a text when we put part 2 in.
Yeah, nice one. All right, mate. Take care.
Cool.
Cheers.
Cheers, Dom. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.